Not too long ago, I was helping a family moving to Newberg because they had a kid they wanted to put in one of the private schools here. And one of the things they wanted to know is, well, is it going to be a good fit for our family? Are we going to like it? Are we going to like the people? They lived in Portland for a long time and they just weren't sure that Newberg was going to be a good fit. And obviously they were nervous if they were going to move their whole family here. So whether you're moving from Portland or one of the other suburbs or from out of state, you really want to make sure that this is a good place to be before uprooting your entire family and coming to live here. So that's what I'm going to be doing in this video. I'm going to be going over all the good things about Newberg and all the things that really aren't so great. So make sure you watch until the end because there's several things that I really want to make sure that you know about. By the way, if you're new to the channel and you want to learn all about what it's like to live in Newberg, we've got videos all the time that are just about that. Living in Newberg, what is it like moving here? What is it like to work, play, eat, sleep here? That's what this channel is all about. I'm also a realtor with a small real estate team called the Joyful Roberts Group. We're helping people move here all the time. So if you've got questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out at our email or call or reach out on our website. However you want to do it is totally fine. All right, now let's jump into the pros and cons of living in Newberg. So the main thing that's going to draw people to Newberg is that it's a small town. Obviously, if you want to be in a big city, Newberg is not the place for you. Newberg is small, which is a pro, and it's also kind of a con. You can drive pretty much anywhere in less than 10 minutes. I live on the complete opposite side of town of the biggest store here, which is Fred Meyer, and I can get there in still under 10 minutes. Newberg is also one of the safest towns in Oregon, rated as the 4th safest town here. So even though there's places that are technically safer, most of those places are more expensive. So I like to say that Newberg is the most affordable safe town in Oregon. All right, the next great thing about Newberg is the people. There are so many amazing people here. There's so many organizations and nonprofits that help people, and people are really just neighborly here. When you're in Portland or some of the bigger suburbs around there, most people don't really have that neighborly feel because they know there's 100,000 other people they're gonna run into that day and they don't really take the time to care about the person right next to them. Whereas in Newberg, because it's smaller, the people here really look out for each other. It's kind of the first suburb outside of Portland where you get that neighborly feel. It's just far enough away where it doesn't feel like you're in the middle of that big complex and suburb, but it's not so far away that it's just completely rural. So that's one of the things that I really love about living here. If you're the kind of person who is a great neighbor and wants to live near other great neighbors and run into people at the store that you know, Newberg might be a great spot for you. Like any town, Newberg has its pros and cons. Obviously, there's a lot of playgrounds, and we like to come to this one a lot for our kids. And I would say that's really one of the amazing things about Newberg. It's very family focused. There's a ton of playgrounds, a ton of parks, a ton of places to come and take your kids. And if you're someone like me who is still a kid at heart, it's fun to come and play Pong as well. All right, this next thing I'm going to list is a little bit selfish. It's a bit of a self-promotion, but it's called the Giving Town Podcast. This is a podcast that I actually host, and it's kind of down into another niche of living in Newberg. It's about all of the nonprofits and people specifically that make this town a really great place to live. If that's something you're interested, you want to hear about other organizations and people that are making this town a really great place to live, then go ahead and check out the podcast. It's in the link in the description. And the reason I include it in this is because I think wherever you live, it's important to know all the good things happening there. Sure, it's good to be aware of all the negative things, but because there's so much positivity happening, I am a firm believer that whatever you focus on begins to expand in your mind. And if you focus on the good things, then you'll be a happy and enjoyable person to be around. So go ahead and check out that podcast if you're thinking of moving to Newberg. All right, the next great thing about Newberg, and you know, this is kind of other places around here too, but there's really good food and wine here. Newberg is actually rated as one of the best small town food scenes in the entire country. There's so many great places to eat here, and there's so many great wineries that it's impossible, almost literally impossible to visit all of them in the time you're here. So if you like wine, if you like good food, Newberg might be a great spot for you. The weather in Newberg is pretty great too, even though there's usually a week or two where the temperatures get over 100. Like this week, there were several days where it was over 100, but most of the time the temperature is usually in the 90s or below, usually somewhere in the 80s for the most of the summer. So that makes for really great summers. Spring is usually pretty great, and fall, but there are some cons to the weather, which I'll get to in just a minute. The next great thing about Newberg is a beautiful landscape. I visited Ireland a few years back, and Newberg really reminds me of that Irish landscape. I honestly felt like I was home driving driving to the coast because Newberg is such a beautiful place. I've taken this for granted, but then I travel in other areas and realize, wow, it's kind of ugly, but I think I've just gotten spoiled with how beautiful it is in Newberg. There's valleys, there's hills, there's trees, there's streams everywhere, and I just absolutely love that about Newberg. On that same note, there's a lot of adventure to be had here. Newberg's fairly close to the ocean, about an hour and a half away, and also to mountain, which is an hour and a half away, and there's a lot of areas that you can explore around Newberg. There's always adventure to be had. Plenty of places nearby without that much driving that you can easily go and find your own adventure. It also has access to the Willamette River at Rogers Landing, and that's a pretty great place to go as well, to go swimming or take out your boat or kayak or something like that. Also, because Newberg is a fairly small town, you can walk or bike almost anywhere without it taking that long. There's lots of sidewalks. A lot of the neighborhoods are pretty good for walking or biking, so you don't always have to drive a car everywhere. And the last thing I'll mention, I kind of already said it, is that there's a sense of community. Whether it's a Wednesday market where people are selling some things that they've made on their own, or it's a Tunes on Tuesday event where there's music, or it's a library event, there's almost always something happening. And actually on this channel, every month I do an event video that says what the different events are coming up that month. So if you're someone who likes community and likes being involved in what's going on, knowing your neighbors, Newberg might be a great spot for you. Okay, moving on to the negative sides of Newberg. I've listed all the things that are great, but now I'm talking about the things that really aren't so great. And if you're really weighing whether or not Newberg is a good spot for you, these are some things you're going to want to take into consideration. So number one, Newberg is fairly far away from Portland or any other really big city. If you want to do some intense shopping, or you want to go to a big concert or something like that, a lot of times you'll have to drive to Portland, and it's not that far. It's about 40 to 50 minutes away depending on traffic. But if you're someone who likes doing things in the evening on a regular basis, Newberg might not be the spot for you because there's really not much of a nightlife here. While Newberg is not extremely rural, it's definitely more rural than Portland, and there's definitely much more of that small town feel. So if you like a big city, don't want rural, then Newberg, even though it's not super rural, may not be a good fit for you. Now, on the note of the political divide, there is sometimes some contention in Newberg because there's about half the people who want things to be one way and half who want things another way. Sometimes that can create conflict. One of the things I'll say about this though is there's a lot of work being done to have conflict in a healthy, supportive manner. I actually like this about this town. I'm really glad it's not super liberal or super conservative, because a lot of times when it's one or the other, it just becomes an echo chamber and nothing meaningful gets done. Whereas here we have to talk about the deep issues, the hard issues. Now, while I do like downtown, there's a lot of really cool things that happen there. There's a lot of cool shops. There is a freaking highway that goes right in the middle of downtown Newberg. Highway 99 is controlled by ODOT, not by the city of Newberg. It is 3 lanes, and even though it's only 25 miles an hour in the downtown area, it still feels really busy because there's a lot of traffic that goes through there. All right, the next thing I'll say, if you're coming from out of state, coming to Newberg, which is obviously going to be anywhere in Oregon, knowing that you'll have to pay income tax is pretty important to know. The next thing about Newberg, and again, many of these parts of Oregon, is that there's rain. There's a lot of rain here, especially during the winter, and while most people expect spring to get warm and sunny and all that, usually the rain goes all the way through May, sometimes into June, and that can be really hard for a lot of people. So just be prepared if you're moving to Newberg from somewhere else where it's nice and spring is actually like spring. Newberg doesn't really do that. One of the other things I've heard from people that's not a great thing about Newberg is that there's really not that many places to choose from in the way of hotels or places to stay when people come and visit. So if you have people visiting you a lot, they're probably going to need to stay in your house or select one of the very few hotels that are around here. Okay, so at the end of the day, is Newberg right for you or not? Well, it really depends on who you are. If you're someone who likes a tight-knit feel, if you're someone who wants to get to know your neighbors, get involved with community projects, and see people that you know at the store on a regular basis, it's a good chance that Newberg might be for you. However, if you're someone who likes having a real nightlife, you don't like rural towns, you're very far on one political end of the spectrum or the other, maybe Newberg isn't the right place for you. So hopefully this list gives you an idea of what it's like living here, some of the great things about Newberg, some of the not great things. If you've got questions about these topics, feel free to reach out and let me know. If you're thinking of moving here and aren't sure if Newberg is the right spot, or maybe you want to move somewhere else around here, I'd be happy to help you out, answer any questions you might have. If you want to know more about what it's like living in Newberg, go ahead and check out some of these other videos where I go in depth into some of the other areas in town, what it's like living here, and that should hopefully give you a feel for whether or not Newberg is a place you'd want to live. And if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe and hit the bell so that when these videos come out, you're going to see them and get an opportunity to watch that. All right, we'll go ahead and check out one of those videos and I'll catch you in the next one.